This video will show snippets of the main platter being printed. This is the first big print with this new printer, and I had a heck of a hard time trying to get it to print properly. This is the third attempt, and it just wasn't going to stick to this bed. It's a heated bed, but the heater doesn't actually do a uniform heating job on the whole bed, so I ended up having to use a heat gun to try and even out the heat, especially around the edges, and to get this thing to stick down. This is a huge print, and it's going to take 3 days to print, so I want to get it started correctly. This sequence is taken 2 hours into the print. We are now 18 hours into the print, and it's barely off the ground, but you can see the bosses for the mounting screws showing up, and the cylinders for the spice jars are just starting to take shape. It is now about 1 day into the print, and it's going marginally faster now that it's just printing the circular edges. This is 34 hours into the print, and the cylinders are starting to take shape. This is the longest printing marathon I've tried so far. Now we are 43 hours into the print. I sure hope I don't have to redo this whole thing. It has now been printing for over 2 days, so it's got a ways to go yet. It is now 56 hours into the print, and you can see it's just starting to successfully bridge the top plate. Almost done now at 64 hours. It is now done at about 67 hours of printing. It looks pretty good, but it's stuck down really well. It's taking a lot of scraping and chiseling with this nice sharp blade to try and lift this up, and it's taking a lot longer than I'm including in this video. But there's a lot of work to do to get something like this unstuck from this particular bed. The bed is so big, the blade couldn't reach all the way in. I had to scrape all the way around and pry all the way around until finally I got it to pop. It actually printed very well after all was said and done. So here's what it looks like with some spice jars. Some of them are a bit tight. It turns out the spice jars have worse tolerance than the printer. Now on to some of the other parts. This chassis is the main bearings mount for the rotating platter. The two bosses sticking up hold a bearing pillow block, and there's two more in the bottom which hold a second set of bearings. You can see the slots here which allow adjustment or tightening of the set screws into the shaft, and they also allow cleaning the taps. When I tap these holes, they poke through here and I can clean out the plastic that gets caught in the tap. These rails over on the right will hold the main motor that does the rotation and allow it to slide and tighten the belt between the two, between the motor and the platter. Here are a few snippets of the main chassis for the bearings being printed. This print took about 4 hours, maybe a little bit more. This whole mechanical design is getting to be quite complicated. It's definitely a challenge to get all these pieces aligned properly and fitting together and working properly. Now it's close to getting done. Here's what the finished chassis looks like, fresh off the printer. And just to show how the pillow block bearing sits on those bosses, this is a mounting bracket for the rotating motor. You can see the 4 mounting screws at the top here. It just drops in from the top. These pointed arches allow the printer, the 3D printer, to print this without supports. So it can easily print a 45 degree without supports. So we have those on all sides. The slots at the bottom here allow this to slide and adjust the tension of the belt. I'm going to wrap up this video by showing roughly how all these things fit together. So the belt goes on both of those gears, no problem. Now this motor goes into this mounting bracket. Holds it at the right height, and it slides along so that it can adjust the belt and get the tension right. And the axle will come right up into this platform which holds the main platter. I'm just checking that it aligns quite well, so everything's in the right place to be adjusted properly. The height is right. Now I'm just going to try and show that the jar lifting mechanism is about the right height too. So one piston is up, so it should be above where the bottom of the platter is. You can see that there's lots of room for that to happen. And the other piston is down, and the cylinder has to be below the platter, which it is. So we can just get that mounted and it'll fit properly. Now the main platter is going to be concentric with this bamboo base. So right there where the axle is should be in the center of the bamboo, and the drive motor will be off to the side a bit. Something like that. And finally, just to show that the axle does fit, it drops right in there into both bearings. Now I just have to make the jars slide freely in the main platter, and then I can start assembling.